Hello, Amazing Race Canada. My name's Tim Hague Jr. This is Tim Hague Sr. And we're coming at you from the winter metropolis of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We're coming at you today to tell you exactly why we deserve to be on the Amazing Race.
Listen guys, if you live in this town, you gotta be number one, a little bit crazy, two, a whole lot of strong, because it is friggin' cold here most of the time. And we're here to tell you that we're you guys, we got this covered. We're coming at you. Here we are.
Oh boy. Do you think that was too awkward?
That was a little awkward.
I felt awkward.
I felt very awkward,
hopefully.
especially when the neighbors came out.
Yeah, that was...
I think it's better with clothes on.
We'll keep it that way, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, folks, everyone has a story. And honestly, more than anything, we just want a chance to be able to tell ours. My dad 3 years ago, was given some news that most people, it would have shaken them to the core. It would have probably rocked their world and they probably wouldn't have come out from it. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which for those of you who don't know, it's a degenerative disease that at one point, someday, he won't be able to control his body. We want to be able to tell the world that just because a diagnosis happens does not mean that your world ends or that you have to stop fighting.
Yeah, like Tim says, a diagnosis does not have to be the end. For me, at 48 years old, I want to say to my wife, I want to say to my kids, I have 4 kids, I want to say to the Parkinson's community, that just because you've been given a diagnosis does not mean the end of your life, doesn't mean that you can't still compete, doesn't mean that you have to go quietly into the night and roll over with it. I want to stay strong for my kids and my family, I want to stay strong for my career, and continue doing what we do. Last year, Tim ran his first half marathon. I've run a triathlon, 1 full marathon, multiple half marathons, and I plan on running another couple this next summer.
Wow.
We're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing. And we are convinced that this father-son team can be one of the best that you've ever had, certainly the best you've ever had in Canada. We want to compete. We want to win. We expect to hear from you.
You're getting really serious on us now.
Well, I'm serious, folks. We got to go. We're coming at you, folks. You want us.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Present to you Tim Hague.
He's basically like Superman.
Close. Close. Well, good afternoon. Y'all with me? Lunch hasn't settled in yet. You're not dozing off? Now, I'm just going to warn you, if you do, I'm going to come down there. Well, it is a pleasure to be here. Greetings from Winnipeg. Yes, I live in Winnipeg. That was not shot in the summer. The high for Winnipeg today is 15. The high in Waterloo, 16. I wanted to just make you aware of that. Love living in Winnipeg. Well, if you've ever wondered what it takes to get on the Amazing Race Canada, there you go. 2 brown men in toque scarves and boxer shorts in the snow worked for us. How many of you have seen the Amazing Race? Yeah, okay. Well, that's not quite everybody. Now, we're among friends here. It's a nice, warm, friendly crowd. How many of you haven't seen it? You didn't see my show. Go ahead, stick your hand in the air. That's fine. Just one question for you. What do you do with your life? Like, seriously, it is the most watched television show in Canadian history. Did you know that? 4 years running now, it is the most watched, most popular television show in Canada. You can go back, you can still see my show. We run season number 1. You can go to my website, it's timsenior.ca. Scroll to the bottom of the first page there, you can watch my show. You're gonna want to. It's a great show, the best one so far. I'm not biased, but you'll enjoy it. Well, I often start the beginning of my speech talking to people about Parkinson's disease, and I'll ask them, do you know what Parkinson's is? Well, I don't think we have that problem here today. I think we're all well-versed. And to the individual who won the flowers for having Parkinson's the longest, I'm not sure that's a win, hey? I was questioning that one. But nonetheless, the Amazing Race Canada, if you haven't seen it, you can think of it as a giant scavenger hunt. We typically race around the world. In my season, we had the great opportunity of staying in Canada and seeing more parts of Canada than I've ever seen in my life. I had never been east of Toronto before the race. Now I've been in every province and territory except PEI, and I'm going to change that soon. But think of it as a giant scavenger hunt. We race all over Canada looking for a variety of clues and trying to perform a variety of tasks, all the while not coming in last on any given day. If you come in last, you get kicked off the show. You're sent home. We started off in downtown Toronto. I wake up one morning in the Fairmont Royal York Hotel, and I know that I'm living the dream, because there's no way that I could afford the Fairmont Royal York on a nurse's salary. But I wake up with the voices of, at the time, my 15-year-old twins ringing in my ears saying to me, "Dad, if you don't accomplish anything on this show, if you don't do anything, if you don't do anything else, please don't do this. Don't embarrass us." Having beat out 10,000 other teams to be chosen one of 9 to be on The Amazing Race, and the first morning of the first day, I wake up with the well-being, the mental well-being of my children on my mind, tells you what a great father I must be. We nonetheless kick off from Toronto. We go to Niagara Falls. We make our very first mistake among many there in the butterflies. If you've watched the show, you will recall that we took only 1 clue when we should have taken 2. Managed to survive that mistake anyway, got a 30-minute penalty. Nonetheless, we weren't the first team on the first leg of the first season of The Amazing Race Canada to be kicked off the show. Made it into leg 2, went over to Kelowna, made our way from Kelowna down to Vancouver. We were hunting for 6 pieces for a Chinese lion dance that we needed to do, got lost, which you will see becomes a constant theme throughout the course of our race. Nonetheless, managed to get through leg 2, back over east, to Calgary, to Alberta, where we got ourselves into a little lion dance.
Right here, Dad.
Oh, Timothy!
Roadblock. Who wants to get in line?
Yeah, I'll take it.
You want to do it?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. Oh my goodness gracious.
Show them how the black man dances.
Couple reasons why you shouldn't date somebody like
I don't think I did
Try it
it.
again.
Oh, I stumbled a couple times, but it's getting there. It's close.
We've been here close to 3 hours, man.
Really? Shoot.
All right, you're freaking out. Just chill out. Just chill out.
What can you say? It just isn't his thing. I should have done it.
Oh, sorry, man. I may have to go home. I don't know. This sucks.
Just keep it going, man.
Okay.
Don't give up on me, all right?
Okay.
I'm finally just frustrated. It's my 9th time. I just want to be done.
reasons why you shouldn't date somebody like
Congratulations.
Good not give up, Dad. Proud of you. Let's go.
We need a challenge that we can do.
We can do all challenges, Dad. It's just how well.
A challenge that we can do well. Let me restate it.
Let's get it going. Wash out. Here we go.
Tim Jr., Tim Sr.
Let's lift it.
Giant.
Wait, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3.
Money.
Mr. Smarty Pants here comes up with a brilliant idea that we just pick the wheelbarrow up and dump it in.
All right, my son. This is our car, sir.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Car meets haulage.
Thank you, sir. Drive yourself to Horse Thief Canyon Overlook to find John at the next pit stop. Oh, we passed it. I know exactly where that is. You're gonna be going left, and it'll be on the right.
As long as you're positive we're going in the right direction. then
Oh
I'm
yeah.
good.
No, I'm positive I've seen it today.
Okay. And this, can this be right?
I don't know.
Should I pull the cops over and ask them?
Steve Canyon. Oh, that's by the museum.
It's by the museum?
Going around in a circle for crying out loud.
We're clearly going the opposite direction. The deduction is we have to be last.
That's why we've lost. Because of stupid crap like that.
Tim and Tim, you were the last team to arrive.
Yep, I figured as much.
However, this is a non-elimination round.
No.
And you are very much still in this race.
Somebody up there likes us, man. We just keep on rolling.
That makes no sense.
I don't feel like this is who we can be. When you don't feel like you're living up to your potential, then it's frustrating. We are here to win. And I appreciate that everybody else kind of thinks we're on the back burner, that they don't have to think about us. I just hope that they keep it there so that when we fly past them, they wonder what in the world happened.
Amen to that.
You ever have one of those days? Everything you touch turns to ash. Everything you grab's like trying to hold on to sand. Well, let me tell you, Alberta was one of those days. We could do nothing right. I want to tell you, that line dance, what I just showed you was the most we ever got right, or I ever got right. I was counting it off in an 8-4 count, should have been counting it off in an 8 count, never got that dance right. If it hadn't been for Holly, one of the other team members who pulled me aside and showed me a couple of the steps, I'd probably still be there. I will have you know that 27 years ago when I moved to Winnipeg, I got myself into a little line dance competition down at a place called the Forks, doing a little dance called the Boot Scoot and Boogie. Won Blue Bomber CFL tickets that day. There was a day this black man could dance. However, given Parkinson's, and as you well know, we're beaten to a whole new drummer now, right? Tim Jr. there? Dad, I know I saw it. We needed Horse Thief Canyon Overlook. I saw it, Dad. I know exactly where I'm going. Funny thing about Drumheller, you come driving into Drumheller, there are 3 great big signs leading into town that point you to Horseshoe Canyon. We needed Horse Thief Overlook. He took us 10 minutes in the wrong direction. We end up coming in last. Come marching up to the mat that day, I figured I had at least a 50-50 chance of going home that day. I had studied the race. I had watched almost every episode of the American version. My wife is an absolute fanatic. She had watched every version. We understood how this race works. I knew that there would be probably 2 non-elimination legs somewhere throughout the course of the race. I figured that the first one would show up around leg 3 or leg 4. We're in leg 3. I figured I had a 50-50 chance of going home as we came to the mat that day. We come to the mat and John looks at us and says, boys, you're the last team to arrive. However, ladies and gentlemen, however has become my most favored word in the English language. He says, however, this is a non-elimination leg and you are still in this race. Let me tell you that my spirit went absolutely, yeah! Because somehow, against all the odds, we had beat the non-elim, or we had not been eliminated. We had dodged the elimination bullet. We weren't going to embarrass the kids. We were going to get to stay in the race and keep competing. We got to go on. And in the very next second, my spirit went, no! Because I realized I wasn't going to get to go home. I had to stay. I was still going to have opportunity to make a fool out of myself on national television. As we walked away from the mat that day, we went back to our little dinosaur-inspired hotel. Yes, because if you've ever been to Drumheller, you know that that's where God sent all the dinosaurs to die. Went back to our little dinosaur-inspired hotel, sat down with my son, and we began to have a conversation that basically went like this. What the heck are we going to do? Because we are looking like fools. Nothing works. Everything we touch falls apart. As we sat there discussing that evening how we were going to turn our race around, I don't recall how we came to it, but we came to a discussion of my son's tattoos. You have to understand, I have 4 children. The first 2 basically came out of the womb saying, Daddy, I want a tattoo. Daddy has always said no, said when you're 18 years old, you go do to your body whatever you want, but until that time, no tattoos. On their 18th birthdays, my first two children had tattoos. Can't complain too much about Tim Jr.'s, or either of them actually, but Tim Jr. has here on his arm a symbol of the Christian Trinity. On his back is a passage from the Christian Scriptures, one verse, Psalms 46:10, 2 words, says, cease striving. As we sat there that evening, we started talking about that word striving, and we realized that we didn't really understand what it meant. So we did what we do these days, and we went to Mr. Google. You Google the word striving, you will find that it means to contend, to quarrel, to fight. It comes from the Old English. It has a bit of the Old French attached to it for the word strife. It is that freaked out, stressed out way of thinking that basically says, by God, I will make this thing happen no matter what it takes. We realized that we had come into the race with the intent to do any challenge that they put in front of us, to run over any team that got in front of us, and that we were going to make this race work. We were going to control this thing no matter what it took. Remind you of some days with Parkinson's? We realized in that moment that it wasn't working for us. We had to make a decision that day. We made a decision to stop. Not stop racing, not stop competing, but to stop this destructive way of thinking about our race. We decided to stop and start over. We realized, first and foremost, that we weren't having fun. And we asked ourselves, how can you be in this place? How can you have had so much success? How can you have been given this blessing and not at least be having fun in last place? Because guaranteed, there are 9,991 other teams who would be more than happy to take your place in last place if they were allowed. So we decided, first and foremost, we were going to start having fun. And next we decided we were going to get up every day and simply do our best. Now, I'm always worried in this spot of my speech that I just had half of you check out. Because what I just said could be interpreted as this. The Tims managed to get themselves on national television. They were competing in an awesome show. They sucked. So they decided to stop, start having fun, and do their best. It could sound a little trite. It could sound a little simplistic, and I would dare say it could sound a little silly. However, I want to remind you of an old proverb that you've heard many times, and it goes something like this. Everything that you ever really needed to learn, you learned in kindergarten. My kindergarten teacher was Mrs. Popovich. Mrs. Popovich and I started off almost every day of kindergarten the same way. I would walk into kindergarten, she would look at me, and she would say, "Timmy, shut up." Timmy has never had a problem talking. More importantly, she would say to me, "Timmy, just do your best. Just do your best." Now, how many of you have ever had a teacher, a mentor, a professor, a parent tell you, just do your best? All right? And isn't Mrs. Popovich right? Wasn't she right? We live in a culture and in a society, and we suffer from a disease that tells us you're not good enough. You're not fast enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not something enough. We often get up from Parkinson's and feel like we can't do enough. Back in the day, if you're retired or if you're still in your career, we are at times approached by the boss, by a culture that says if you care about your job, if you care about who you are, if you care about where you're going, you'll show up and you'll give 110%. If you're really on fire, you'll give me 150% today. Well, I want to ask you a question. How many of you can give 110% at anything? Careful, careful. No, you can't, Rose. The best that you can ever give is your best. Now, your best, my best, looks different from day to day. I get up some days with Parkinson's and I have a tough time buttoning my own shirt, have a tough time rolling out of bed, have a tough time stringing 2 sentences together. There are other days I get out of bed with Parkinson's and I feel basically normal. I'm 51 years old, and there are some days I feel like I'm 30 again. I can go do whatever I please, and I feel great doing it. There is no way I can manipulate those 2 days. I am my best, regardless of what my symptoms tell me I am. If I'm over here and having a rough day, well, then that's the best today's going to be. If I'm over here and I'm having a great day and I'm symptom-free or almost symptom-free, great, but that's the best I'm going to be. I can never give 150%. And Mrs. Popovich was right. The best that we can ever do is to get up every single day, have fun, and simply do our best. The Tims back in Alberta made a decision to get up every day, follow the advice of Mrs. Popovich, and simply do our best. Now, if you had watched our show, you would have seen that we ran a classic underdog race. We were the dark horses. We were the come-from-behind Cinderella story that nobody expected to happen. We were error-prone and chronically behind. We had multiple opportunities to roll over and die, knowing that no one would have been surprised and few would have mourned our passing. But we had made a decision that we were going to follow the advice of Mrs. Popovich, get up every day, and simply do our best. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to suggest to you that with our newfound frame of mind, with our new focus, with this new settled, positive outlook on life, that our gameplay radically changed. However, it did not. We continued to suck. But this is where the race taught us the meaning of the word perseverance. Perseverance is a great big long word that we don't like to talk about very much anymore. We don't like using it because it's typically attached to things that are bad, things that are difficult. It is often attached to other P words like Parkinson's. It typically comes with baggage. But as we went through the course of the race and we ran across this word called Parkinson's, we realized that Tim Jr. couldn't pronounce it. I didn't remember what it meant, so back to Mr. Google we go. Google the word Parkinson's and you'll find this definition. To carry on in your course of action, even in the face of difficulty, with little or no evidence of success. To carry on in your course of action, even in the face of difficulty, with little or no evidence of success. If you Google that word, you will find that definition and alongside it the faces of the Tims. Yes, because never did we ever give you any indication that we would be successful. Yes, we had chosen to carry on in our course of action, even in the face of difficulty, but never did we ever give you any indication that we would succeed. For example, of those of you who watched the show, how many of you thought we would go on to win? Okay, this is an astute crowd. I generally get one hand. It's a long room, so I had to make sure I didn't get that one hand, but generally I'd get the one. But you're absolutely right. No. The best we ever gave you was that we would likely go home the next day. Never did we ever exhibit any hope that we would be successful. Matter of fact, leg after leg, we got lost. You would have seen us get lost in Kelowna. You would have seen us get lost in Vancouver, looking for those 6 pieces of that lion dance. You would have seen us get lost in Iqaluit, looking for the territorial park. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's not that much to get lost in Nunavut. Yet we could not find that park for love or money. In Quebec City, the second time we came in last, I had asked a mailman for directions. A mailman. Who better to ask for directions than a mailman? He sent us right when we should have gone left. We spent an hour chasing our tails in Quebec City and came in last once again. Cape Spear, Newfoundland, the most easterly point in North America. We were effectively in the semis. There were 4 teams left. We were in 3rd position. All we had to do was get to the mat and we would be racing for $500,000 in cash and prizes, and we got lost. The Toronto Zoo, last leg of the race. We're finally in 1st place. We get to the zoo before anybody else and manage to do in an hour and a half what the other 2 teams did in 15 minutes because we got lost. over and over and over, we struggled, whether from my Parkinson's or the simple fact that we could not read a map. We struggled. This is my analogy for my life with Parkinson's. So often, it feels as though we are lost in this disease. And yet, we have the choice to persevere. People ask me, where did it come from on the race? Where did that will to persevere come from? Well, for me, it started in August of 2010. I was sitting in my kitchen reading the Saturday morning newspaper, having a cup of coffee, when a brand new thought entered my head. That thought was, my left big toe is twitching. If you can imagine with me sitting there reading the paper and doing one of these, yeah, my left big toe is twitching. I had been a nurse for 18 years at that point. Any nurses in the room? Yeah? So what's a nurse do, right? Quick head to toe. What's going on? I thought to myself, I'm not anxious, not depressed, job's okay, kids are okay, finances are okay, the wife's okay, she's not mad at me today. There's no reason for me to be twitchy from a psychological standpoint. So I thought, well, if it's not psychological, it must be physiological. And I thought to myself, if it's physiological, it's likely neurological. If it's neurological, it's likely MS or Parkinson's. And ladies and gentlemen, that is literally the first 5 minutes of my journey with this thing called Parkinson's disease. Now you have to understand, my father died with Parkinson's. I have a half-sister who has MS. These things were not far from me. I unfortunately did what many husbands do in this moment. I thought about talking to the wife, but any good husband does what, gentlemen? That's right, keep your mouth shut. Okay, that's not what a good husband does, but that's what I did. This was August. We had just passed our 25th wedding anniversary in July. We had a 3-week vacation planned in Europe for October. I thought to myself, you know what, I might be wrong. It might go away. It might be whatever. We'll give it some time. We'll go on holidays. We'll have a great time. If it's still there when I get back home, we'll talk about it. Well, what I have subsequently learned that I didn't know then was that any kind of stress, good, bad, or indifferent, will make your Parkinson's symptoms worse, right? We had planned to do in our 40s what you're supposed to do in your 20s, and that is backpack across Europe. 3 weeks, 2 backpacks. We booked our first hotel in Madrid, our last hotel in Athens, and for 3 weeks in between, nothing. Word to the wise. Should you choose this vacation, and it's a great time, don't show up in Rome on a Saturday night with no accommodations booked. We stepped off of a train at 9 o'clock at night in Rome in a darkened train station. There is one poor student, one poor family that looked like they didn't have 2-cent pennies to rub together, and a guy steps out of the shadows. Came directly for the rich North Americans and said, do you need a hotel? I go, yeah, we need a hotel. We need something. He goes, well, I'll tell you what. I know a guy. I find myself traipsing through the darkened alleys of Rome, following a guy who knows a guy who has a hotel. If this were your children and they survived, you would kill them. It is ridiculous. The short story is, he did know a guy who had a fabulous little boutique hotel, cost me an absolute fortune, but we didn't sleep on a park bench or a train bench that night, had a nice little hotel. The downside is that that toe trimmer turned into a foot trimmer, that turned into a leg trimmer, that turned me into a basket case, saying to my wife, honey, something's wrong with me. She looks at me ever so lovingly and says, sweetheart, we have known that for some time. But she says, look, settle down. You're a little twitchy. Something's up, but you're okay. calm down, we'll finish our holidays, we'll have a good time, we'll go home, we'll see the doctor, we'll go from there. That's what we did. Had a great holiday, got home, sat down with my GP, spent about 20 minutes in his office discussing the fact that I likely had young onset Parkinson's disease. He said, but let's get you to see a neurologist, get you over to a movement disorder specialist, get you formally diagnosed. In February of 2011, at the young age of 46 years old, I was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease. To say that I was unimpressed would be the understatement of a lifetime. I was ticked, but I was mostly scared. Because, like I said, Dad died with this disease. I had no illusions as to what this diagnosis would ultimately mean for me. I unfortunately went on to do what many of us do when we get this diagnosis, got depressed, got down, stopped cycling, stopped running, stopped doing the things that I knew I needed to do to take care of myself, and sat on a couch. After about a year of that nonsense, finally said to myself, Hague, this is not how you live. This is not how you respond to things. This is not how you're going to run your life. You need to get up off your butt and get going. I did. That next summer, I ran my first and probably only sprint distance triathlon. Not a bad comeback. But I basically had to come to terms with this diagnosis. I thought to myself, as far as I can see, there's one of three ways I can live with this. I can approach it. I can try to treat it like it's benign, what I call the man thing. I can take it, set it on a shelf, ignore it, pretend that I can just go on with my life, do whatever I want, and leave it there. Well, you know as well as I do that she won't stay there. Parkinson's will not be ignored. It will not be left unconsidered. It will be an active part of your life every single day. My tremor, which is not bad right now, I feel pretty good today. Took some drugs just before I come up here, so I'm not bouncing. But the tremor is far worse today than it was 5.5 years ago when I was diagnosed. The rigidity and the stiffness in the shoulder didn't exist 5 years ago. The anxiety and the depression, all those lovely non-motors, trust me, if I could get rid of the non-motor symptoms and just live with a little bit of rigidity and a tremor, in a heartbeat. It's the rest of the crap that is tough to live with. It's not benign. It will not be ignored. Thus, I thought to myself, I could allow it to be a curse. I could live under it, allow it to take who I am, to define all that I am, affect my relationships, my wife, my kid, my job. But at the end of that thought, I thought, you know, if I'm going to be angry, shake my fist at heaven, ask God why, then I'm going to have to balance that. I'm going to have to balance it with the rest of the whys. Why was I born in the United States? Why did I have the very grand fortune of coming to Canada to live? And in this election cycle, thank God. Why was I adopted by a fabulous man and woman and made their son? Why was I given a good education? Why was I given the opportunity to become a nurse, have a good career and earn a decent living? Why was I given a fantastic wife of 31 years? Why was I given 4 wonderfully beautiful, healthy children? Why was I given a fantastic daughter-in-law? Why am I blessed with a 1-year-old beautiful granddaughter? On balance, I saw no reason to shake a fist at heaven and ask why. So if it's not benign, and if I will not allow it to be a curse, the only other thing I could see is that it had to be a blessing. That there had to be something good in this thing that is both good for me and for those around me. And so from that day forward, I chose to walk forward with Parkinson's as a blessing rather than a curse. That other old proverb that says, hold your friends close and your enemies closer. I chose to make Parkinson's my new best friend, whom I hate, and to walk forward in a blessing rather than a curse. Thus, when I walked into the Amazing Race Canada, I walked into the race with the same attitude that I walked through life with, and that is this: Parkinson's cannot have my life, and neither could it take the Amazing Race Canada away from me. Thus, when I did stand on a 12-inch wide plank, 100 feet in the air, over a ravine in Kelowna, I said, I will walk this plank and I will not fall off. When I sat in front of 10 pieces of muktuk whale blubber in a Iqaluit, I said, I will eat this and I will not throw up. All the while having the words of my mother running through my head, I hope you have one just like you. Yeah, you had a mom like that too, eh? So it's easy to say, but how do you do it? How do you live it out on a day-to-day basis? Well, I call it live your best. I get up every day, attempt to follow the advice of Mrs. Popovich, have fun, simply do my best. And I break live your best down then into other words, and the one that I'll leave you with today is contentment. Contentment is another great, big, long, difficult word that's hard to put up alongside Parkinson's. If you Google the word contentment, you will find that it means an emotional state of satisfaction drawn from being at ease in one's situation. It's a heck of a word to put alongside Parkinson's. An emotional state of satisfaction drawn from being at ease in one's situation. I won't ask you to raise your hands, but how many of you are at ease in your situation with Parkinson's? Now, I'll have people ask me, how can you talk about that? How can you put alongside Parkinson's this term, contentment? Well, the best way I've found to describe it is through a little story. 11 years ago, when we moved into the house that we're in now, one of the primary selling points was a giant elm tree that stood in the front yard. Its branches overflowed into my neighbor's yard, covered our front street, and covered the majority of our front yard. It was a beautiful tree. Well, this spring, an arborist from the city of Winnipeg showed up at my door, a young lady, and she said, "Sir, your tree is diseased, it's ill, it's going to have to be cut down." I walked outside and I looked at it and I said, "What are you talking to me? What are you saying to me? It looks great. It's full of leaves. It looks fine. What's wrong?" She said, "Well, you see how those two trunks at the bottom bifurcate and you can see right through it?" I said, "Yeah, that split's been there for a long time." She said, "Well, that split goes right to the ground. It's dangerous and it's going to have to come down." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I wanted to argue with her, and she said, "Sir, it's on the city property. It's going to be cut down." I thought to myself, yeah, city of Winnipeg, I'll see you in 6 years. Well, under 6 weeks, Cheryl and I, my wife, are sitting in the kitchen. We hear a chainsaw go. Walk to the living room and watch for the next 2 hours as 7 men do this beautiful, horrific dance as they brought down that giant elm tree. Great, big, giant limbs would come thudding to the ground. They had this little machine that they would stand on with a hook in the front that they would come along, pick up branches and pitch it into a chipper and all but disintegrate our tree. In under 2 hours, our tree ceased to exist. I don't think any of you would disagree with me that it's good and right to mourn the loss of that tree. It is a beautiful tree. But I think you would also agree that at some point, you stop mourning the tree, you move on. But what do? The yard is blank, it looks barren. Well, in our case, we're going to replant. We're going to plant a new tree. We're going to experience new growth and new beauty in place of the old. Ladies and gentlemen, my old life has been felled by Parkinson's. It's been knocked down, chopped down, and thrown into a shredder. It's not coming back. But the reality is, I can choose to persevere. I can choose to replant. I can choose to experience new beauty in place of the old. Will it ever be like my old life? No. It's gone. but it nonetheless can be beautiful if I choose. For me, that is what contentment means. That is how I live my best. Through the practice of contentment. Taking the advice of Mrs. Popovich to get up every day, to have fun, to simply do my best, to practice contentment, and to always persevere. Throughout the course of the race, we would get together with friends and family, and we would watch the show every week in various venues. We'd get together at a Boston Pizza or at a church or at a community center, and we'd watch the show together. Week 6, leg 6. We're in Boston Pizza. The lounge is full. It's overflowed into the restaurant. We've got hundreds of family and friends with us, and we're coming in last. As we come to the mat that day, we start getting the loser clap. You ever heard the loser clap? Yeah. That slow, rhythmic, way to go, boys. Good job, boys. You made it on national television, boys. You've made it through leg 6. You kind of suck. But you're Winnipeggers, so we'll give you at least the loser clap. And it hurt. It hurt that they thought we would be done. But for one brief moment in time, 4 people in that room, we stood there like gods. My wife, myself, my son, my daughter-in-law, because we knew the future. We knew that not only was this a non-elimination leg, but we knew that we went on to win the whole thing. So when we come running up to the mat that day, and I'm standing there with a goofy grin on my face, and John says to us, boys, you're the last team to arrive. However, this is a non-elimination leg, and your wives are going to have to live without you for just a little bit longer. The room absolutely exploded in applause. Everyone was amazed beyond belief that somehow, for a second time, we beat the non-elimination. We got to stay in the race. I ran around the room high-fiving everybody like it was the greatest thing, almost as much fun as winning. If you don't hear anything else I say today, hear this. Had we at any point along the race listened to that loser clap that played every day, had we at any time taken a step back and just checked out and just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not fast enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not whatever enough. Ladies and gentlemen, we would have sacrificed a championship that had only one name on it, and that name was the Tims. All we had to do was stay in the race and go get it. When that loser clap plays in your head, when Parkinson's tells you that you can't, when it tells you that you will never succeed, when it tells you that you don't have what it takes, I want to remind you to think of the Tims. That in the face of difficulty, in the face of never having any evidence of success, we persevered and won a championship that no one expected. There is a win waiting somewhere in your future. With Parkinson's, with a spouse, with a kid, a something, if you will but stay in your race. The Tims chose to persevere. We chose to stay in our race, and because we did, it led to this.
It's rock and roll, baby.
Father and son, Tim and Tim Jr.
You got it, Dad. Here we go.
started the race with the added challenge of Tim Sr.'s Parkinson's.
That diagnosis doesn't have to define your life. This guy's my hero right here. I'm really proud of him.
Leg after leg, Tim Sr. pushed himself beyond anyone's expectations.
You can do more than you think you can. You just have to be willing to try.
Good fortune smiled on the Tims.
This is a non-elimination round?
No.
Not once, but twice.
You are still in this race.
More than anyone, the Tims know it's now or never.
5 years from now, I won't have the physical capability to do this race. I have to win.
Talk to me. 7 provinces, 3 territories, 15 cities, and over 23,000 kilometers. There we go! And you are the first winners of the Amazing Race Canada. Tim Sr., Tim Jr., you guys have won 2 2014 Corvette Stingrays, executive first-class travel for a year from Air Canada to anywhere in the world, and $250,000.
My dad has completely blown every expectation of him out of the water. Parkinson's isn't supposed to let you do half the things that he's done in this race. And he not only did them, he kicked their butt, man.
Yeah. Somehow it... Thanks. Thank you. Somehow I never get tired of watching that. Thank you. Listen, I understand the hard reality of this disease. I know that without a cure, it may very well one day win the war that we wage with it. However, today's battle is ours. Every day we get up and we feel like that we've been robbed of some function, of some ability, of some something. But we have the ability to choose. And today I choose to live my best. I will accept what this day brings, and I will live to my best, whether that is a terrible day, I will embrace it. Or whether it is a great day, I will embrace it. When you struggle, stop and remember the Tims and persevere. Stay in your race, and you will discover more wins and more success than you ever dreamt possible. You can do more than you think you can. You just have to be willing to try. Thank you so much for having me today. It's such a pleasure to come share my story with you. God bless you all. Thank you.